Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank, and we're going to pick up where we left off with our Tom King Batman run, and we're going to kick it right off with the next story, which is The Best Man. So, the Best Man story sort of poses the elephant in the room question that I think a lot of readers had when we found out that Batman had proposed to Catwoman. And to sort of get a feel of that, you have to understand what the state of DC Comics was at the time, at least the what DC was doing when not only did Batman propose to Catwoman, but Catwoman said yes. And it wasn't just in Tom King's book that they were building up this wedding. There was also a series of books called Prelude to the Wedding, and this was pretty much the Bat family and Harley sort of going on little weird little adventures involving, well, Batman's rogues gallery. Damian had to deal with Ra's al Ghul, Jason had to deal with Anarchy, Nightwing had to deal with Hush, and Batgirl dealt with Riddler, and Harley dealt with Joker. And this is how Joker sort of finds out that Batman is marrying Catwoman, and he's not happy about this. And this leads to an altercation with Batman, Joker, and Catwoman. And this story has sort of two parts. And, well, two parts that stand out about, two parts that make it, and one of them is actually really bad. The other one's really good. The part that's really bad is Batman and Joker. So, the real purpose of the story is to get Catwoman and Joker talking. Now, to get to that, Batman has to go deal with Joker alone as he's going to shoot up a church. Well, not going to, he pretty much did. He killed everyone in that church. Batman goes to stop him. Joker decides, like, if you come a step closer to Batman, I'll shoot myself. I think, personally, Batman should call that bluff. I think he should. No one's going to fault him, but I get it. In Batman's mind, as few people need to die as possible, even the Joker, and everyone else here was already dead. So it's sort of like a moot point. And again, if we can kill Selena Kyle, why can't we kill the Joker for mass murder? Anyway, Batman decides not to take a step further. Joker makes his half-hearted plea, like, "Can I just sit down and pray for a minute before I give up?" And Joker sits down and prays. Batman sits next to him for some reason to attempt to pray, and big surprise, Batman's in trouble. Selina Kyle goes to save him, and the two of them, Catwoman and Joker, have an altercation. They're both mortally wounded. If either of them move anymore, they could risk bleeding out and dying. And this is where the real story takes place. The back and forth between Catwoman and Joker. And what's interesting about that is it sort of reminded you a bit that there was a time when Catwoman, Joker, Harvey, Riddler, all of them were pretty much friends. They'd hang out together. Sometimes they'd work together. But the changes in storyline, amping up the Joker. Turns out all these people wouldn't really get along. Even the book sort of mentions that Catwoman and Joker don't really get along with Penguin, but they get along with Harvey, and Harvey gets along with Penguin. So that's sort of how they all sort of get together. And the fun back and forth is really just getting a look at these two characters who I don't think have had a proper interaction for a good while. I think the closest was New 52, Catwoman's book. Joker tries to kidnap Catwoman for death of the family, and Catwoman just reveals, like, "Oh my god, you're in love with Batman." Well, I'm in love with Batman. We both can't do this. And the dialogue, I think, is really great. Catwoman proposes a theory that Riddler had, that Joker is crazy, but he's not as crazy as he seems. He just sort of knows how far he needs to go to, get away with some stuff. And when Joker asks, "Do you believe that?" she just goes, "Well, before I believe that, Riddler would have to shave off those terrible sideburns." And then it talks about Batman and Catwoman's marriage. And Joker sort of feels like, all he really needs is me. He doesn't need you. You're bad for him. I make him better. I make him a better Batman. All right? Batman cannot be effective and be happy. Okay? One will destroy the other. And this sort of explains why Joker does what he does. Death of the family, not death in the family, death of the family, that Scott Snyder wrote sort of implied the same thing. That the family, that, the Robins, the Batgirls, the Batwomen, they just sort of slow him down. All that really matters is Joker and Batman. Or he's at his best when Joker's in the room. And Selina doesn't quite believe it. And this really doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't, at least right now. It doesn't feel like what he said really resonates with Catwoman. Long story short, Catwoman finds the strength to get up. Joker presumably dies. And Catwoman gets some Joker toxin in her, which we thought would be a bigger deal, but no, she's fine next issue. Coming up to the next issue is the wedding itself. Now, the wedding itself is, I, I think personally, it's a really good story. I think it's a really good issue. It's an oversized issue because, well, it's the wedding. It's been built up for months. It was in the news. There were parties being held at comic book stores for this great event. They were just ticking the time off before this happened. And amongst all of it, um, there was one problem outside of the actual reveal, which is that the issue itself was spoiled. So there was an article, I forget who put the article out. They said that, Catwoman leaves Batman at the altar. And to be fair, this was going to be what? One of two possible outcomes. Either they get married or they don't get married. The problem was that someone from DC said, oh, yeah, this is true. So it was a rumor that was confirmed true by someone within the company. So that already ruined the ending. Fans hate when the ending is ruined, even when they know what the ending is. Because an ending isn't really the same. Just because you know how it ends doesn't mean you know how it ends. So when you know what's going to happen, it sort of leaves a bad taste in the mouth. So we get to the issue itself, and I think it's beautifully written, a bit drawn out, which King sort of does every now and then. And it's really just, it feels like their vows. It feels like Batman and Catwoman are sort of going over their vows in their head. And they're getting ready to meet on a rooftop. They've decided to scrap the actual plan, the actual meeting. No, we don't need Superman. We don't need to go anywhere. We don't need the superhero community. They're trying to figure out where they're going to get married. And people have already pointed out, like, they could get married in Atlantis, Themyscira, even though Themyscira is inaccessible, but still another planet. There's no reason why Batman and Catwoman, or more probably Bruce and Selina, could not be legally, publicly married somewhere where the mainstream media wouldn't get a hold of it. Whatever. And there's two really interesting points, which is who the maid of honor is and who the best man is. And this sort of matters. The best man is Alfred. And that was a really tender moment because Alfred does not think he's going to be the best man. He thinks, well, by default, his best friend, Superman, or, his favorite son. He doesn't call him his favorite son, but Dick Grayson is the favorite son. Let's just call it what it is. But Bruce says, no, I think it should be you. Because no one's been in my life more than you. No one's been with me through all of it more than you. And they have a tender hug. Alfred points out that in his suit, Bruce looks like his father. Great little moment. Selina chooses Holly, and that makes sense. Holly is like Selina's only friend. She has a she has a rocky relationship with Harley and Ivy at best, and same with Birds of Prey. So, whatevs. And on their way to the rooftop to meet the drunk judge, there's a lush of a judge. More likely won't remember that he's done this, so that's why they're getting him. Holly points out the idea that after Selina tells him that, oh yeah, he's Bruce Wayne, she points out, I didn't think he could be happy and be Batman. I don't think it's possible. I never thought he could be happy. And apparently this resonates with Selina. And Selina decides to leave him at the altar, or on the rooftop. And Bruce doesn't say a word. He just sort of jumps off the roof, which looks weird. Like, is he going to kill himself? Is he? He didn't. But what's interesting and what makes this story work is at the end, when Holly is returned back to Arkham Asylum, instead of going straight to her cell, she keeps walking. And she walks and walks and walks down to the basement where she's greeted by Bane. And Bane isn't alone. Bane is surrounded by Hugo Strange, Riddler, Joker, Flashpoint Batman of all people, Gotham Girl. They're all just sort of there. And as Bane points out, the bat has been broken. So that's pretty much what the wedding is in itself. This is left to imply to us that there is a plan going on issued by Bane with his huge coalition of bad guys. Which, to be fair, this is a great coalition, minus Flashpoint Batman. The idea that Hugo Strange, Riddler, and Joker could work together, which they couldn't. They really could not, let alone work with Bane to destroy Batman, is a fun idea. Then we come to the next issue, which I personally call Tom King's best story for his Batman run. It's called Cold Days. And Cold Days is interesting because it deals pretty much right after the events of Bruce being left at the altar And what's going on here is Mr. Freeze is on trial, and Bruce is part of the jury. So Freeze's story is that he's accused of killing some women, and it all sort of matches Freeze's MO. But Freeze says something interesting, that he's innocent. Not only did he not do it, but Batman forced a confession out of him. And Freeze points out, he was beating me harder than he ever beat me before, and I just said whatever to get him to stop. By default, most people don't believe it, and King does a great job of sort of building up the hype of Batman in this story as we just see these jurors. We don't know these people. They're not. I don't think they've been in the background of any Batman story. They're just sort of they're the everyday people of Gotham City, and they trust Batman. And Bruce comes up, and when he's being screened by the juror, by the by the lawyers and the judge and whatever. I don't think the judge is there at jury selection. He might be. I never got to the jury selection part when I went to jury duty. If you guys did, let me know. What he says is, he pretty much gives a very candid response, like, "Hey, it's my duty whether I'm rich or not. Jury duty is jury duty. I think I'm about as close to Batman as anyone else. I've probably been saved by him. He feels like a natural part of Gotham City, like a gargoyle." But what this story is us seeing just how bad Bruce has been since Catwoman left at the altar. Because his story here, Bruce knows he went too far. It's sort of like during the whole altercation, he went too far, and he realized that he went too far when he sort of looked back at the evidence. Turns out that someone tampered with the body, and he did go too far with Freeze getting that confession out. He just wanted to hurt somebody. He just wanted to let out that rage, and Bruce has to convince the jury of this. He has to convince the jury that Batman was wrong, and he really can't, because they're all sort of biased towards Batman. This reminds me of something in, I think it was Dan Slott's run on She-Hulk, when Jennifer Walters is being a lawyer, and she has to stop being a lawyer to go save the world with the Avengers. And they get the other side. I forget if she was a prosecutor or the defense. The other side gets the case thrown out because Jennifer Walters has biased the jury against them, because she just helped save the world. Even if the evidence is insurmountable, you're gonna feel like, well, the lawyer did save us all. We should do her a solid. So Bruce has to deal with that. He has to try to convince them that Batman is not infallible, that Batman can make a mistake, that Batman is not God. And what I liked about this was it sort of echoed something that I think I've always believed, that no one is more critical of Batman than Bruce Wayne. No one holds him to that standard. That's why people have pointed out that Batman is one of those few heroes that actually go on patrol. That he doesn't wait for stuff to happen. He's out on the street. He's out in the skies. He's always looking out, trying to prevent something from happening. And because the nature of narrative, Joker, Riddler, Penguin, they're always in the opposite spot that Batman is. But it was a really, really great moment. And you see the vulnerability of Bruce when he's talking to the jurors. When he points out that, hey, I was hurt recently. And the look on his face and just how he says it, it really spoke to exactly how bad a shape Bruce is in, even more so that he felt that he had to bribe his way onto a jury to get people to say, no, we have to hold Batman to a higher standard. We can't just accept that he's right because he's Batman. That might have been social commentary. On Batman. But whatever. This was a really great story. And the story ends with Bruce saying, yeah, I was able to convince the jury. And when I go out tonight, I don't want to wear my current suit, which was a really beautiful suit, designed by Greg Capullo at the end of his Batman run with Scott Snyder. He wants to wear one of his older suits. He wants to get back to who he used to be. And it was great. It was a beautiful story. And it wasn't drawn out, which I think King has a tendency to do, and we're going to see a story which he really draws out too long later on in this series. But overall, that was a great, great story. Next up is Beast of Burden. We're going to end it with this story. So Beast of Burden is sort of, I think it's a 4-part story, but before that, there's a fun little story about Dick Grayson. And this is important because Dick Grayson is involved in the Beast of Burden story. He's super important. Dick Grayson he's hanging around Bruce a lot. He wants to spend time with him. For people that don't know, Dick Grayson was left at the altar a long time ago by Starfire. And they've still been best friends and a little more later on. But he knows what it's like to be left at the altar. And he also feels horribly indebted to Bruce. And this is something that I think a lot of people sort of forget or sort of underestimate because it's not really talked about as much. When Dick Grayson's parents died, or were killed, let's call it what it was, Bruce took him in. And there was no attempt to turn Dick Grayson into Robin. It was just, look, I want this kid to not be what I was. I don't want him to be Batman. That was always something that was sort of important. Like, maybe there was a part of Bruce that said, like, Dick Grayson, as Robin, should be Batman. But no, he never really wanted him to be Batman. It's like, no, Batman is my burden. And the interactions the young Dick Grayson has with Bruce at the time, it, it's sweet, it's tender, and it sort of explains why Dick Grayson is hanging around here. He's like, no, I owe this man a lot, and you don't quite hear that a lot. And Dick doesn't actually say it, but you get that feeling. New 52 Batgirl, when Gail Simone was writing it, sort of had that moment too, and I would like to see it more, a bit more, gratitude from the Bat family about exactly how important Batman's been in their lives. But I digress. That's pretty much what the story was. Nightwing hanging around Bruce because he knows Bruce is in a bad spot. Like, I'm just gonna hang around for a bit. We'll just have some fun. You don't need to be alone right now. I'm your bro, man. I'm also like your son, but I'm your bro right now. Then comes the actual Beast of Burden storyline with the KG Beast coming back to Gotham City. And the KG Beast is one of the most dangerous killers in the DC universe. He's not like a mercenary. He just, some people need killed. People hire me to kill them. And he shoots Dick Grayson. And the opening story was a bit confusing for a minute for me because I was like, so what's going on here? The story does a great job of playing with your expectations. Is the KG Beast trying to kill Batman or is he trying to kill Nightwing? He shoots Nightwing. But for a long period of time, you think he's going to shoot Batman. At least he's here to shoot Batman. Then, all war is declared in the Bat family. And by the Bat family, I mean Alfred and Batman. Because Dick Grayson isn't dead. He's in critical condition. He's been shot in the head. And Batman's like, the KG Beast is he's a great killer. He's been trained by some of the best. And Alfred's like, can you find him? Can you find him? And Batman's like, oh, I can find him. And it's war. It's war. If you saw Injustice, you know what happens if you attack Dick Grayson. If you attack his son. If you attack any of them, really. But no. Dick Grayson is the prodigal son. And Batman just runs through every contact he has. He goes through people from New Genesis, League of Assassin members. Just, no, I want to find the KG Beast. Where is he? And something similar like this happened in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker when Tim Drake was kidnapped by the Joker. Batman and Batgirl wasted no time hitting up every crime boss, hitting up every little organization in the city like, look, I need some answers. You're going to give me those answers or you're going to get hurt. All right? And so when he finds the KG Beast, it's a really, really awesome story because Batman will not be deterred as he goes, like, I'm guessing Russia, the frozen wasteland that is Russia. It's so cold and so the winds are so high that not only can he not fly the Batjet out there to this frozen wasteland where the KG Beast is, he can't even maintain communications. And Bruce just walks through it all as Batman, just walks through it all. He doesn't look like he's cold, but you can see like he's got frostbite all over his face. He just keeps walking like he does. He will not be deterred. Alfred's like, Master Bruce, Batman, you break. I'm like, no, most people will die this way. You won't make it. No, Batman just keeps going. He engages the KG Beast. They have an intense fight. There's a really stupid and semi-interesting story that apparently both the KG Beast and Bruce were read to as a child about some animals going to St. Petersburg to pray. They fall into a pit. They devour each other, and it's weird, sort of tries to explain why Bruce is the way he is. His dad read him this story about a bunch of animals devouring each other to survive. And then, after the fight, Batman emerges victorious. KGB's neck is broken, and Beast's like, you must help me, Batman. I might not make it. If you help me, I'll tell you who hired me to shoot your boy. And Bruce is like, Batman's like, look, I'm bleeding a lot. I got a long walk to go. Also, I'm the world's greatest detective. Who hired you to shoot my boy? Oh my! You just find your own way home, and he just leaves him. And that's how that story ends. So that is part 3 of The Tom King run of Batman. What I liked about this run was I think it is Tom King really getting his story. This is the story he wants to tell. And some people talked about this as sort of him projecting. That, Tom King recently got divorced. Or maybe not recently. I don't know. I don't really care about Tom King's personal life. He was in the CIA, apparently. And people were really excited about that when he was announced. Okay, we get some spy level stories, something like that. But sort of not what we're getting here. But King, at this point, you think King knows how to break a character. Cold Days, I think, is his best example of him breaking a character, and it's a really great story because of that. I think he gets a lot of flack for not having them get together, but I think at this point, at the point of the story now, I think the bigger problem was the leak and the confirmation that the leak was true. Because otherwise, if it was just a rumor, it was just a rumor. But when someone from the company says, "Oh yeah, that happened," yeah, there's problems. I think I would personally fire whoever confirmed that rumor. Because imagine if that happened for like a movie. Like, oh yeah, Palpatine's back, and Rey is a Palpatine, and Ben Solo's gonna die, and all the Jedi legitimately are like surrounding Rey at the end, and she becomes a Skywalker when she goes to Tatooine. Yeah, I spoiled the movie, yeah. But imagine if that came out like a week before the movie came out, and they just give that reveal. Dude's fired. Dude's fired. I would say this is the best example of King knowing how to break a character, and we're going to see later on that this story will get away from him. I think this is the moment when he's got a firm grasp on it, in my opinion, and then later on we'll see it slowly start to fall apart for him, at least for a while. Then it's just gone. Anyway, with that in mind, we'll bring this video to close here. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out some other videos on this channel, especially my other parts on this Tom King Batman review, and I will catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching, and as always, may your fandom serve you well.